How many gigs is enough? Today we're going to help you answer the question as a musician, as a performer. How many gigs is enough for you? And as you can imagine, there are a lot of different answers. We'll get to those. My name is Kev Rowe. I am a career-long singer-songwriter, performing artist, recording artist, music marketer. I'm also a playlist curator on Submit Hub, so I've had lots of jobs in the music business. But yes, I was a touring performer and still am sometimes. In the music business, I toured with my bands Big Leg Emma and 5 Cubic Feet and my current band Kev Rowe and Friends. And I've also toured as a solo acoustic musician. Depending on what year in my life you are referencing. So I've really done it all. Over 2,000 shows nationwide in every possible venue type that you can imagine. Like bars, of course, music festivals, city events, coffee houses, weddings. I've never played a bar mitzvah yet. But yeah, I've really played anywhere you can possibly imagine. I'm now 48, so that's, I've been playing live since I was 17 years old, so that's 31 years of doing live gigs. And a lot has changed. A lot has remained the same. Unfortunately, the pay. but a lot has changed in society for sure, and the role of live music. That's probably a different video than this one. But yeah, let's get to you. You might ask yourself, how many gigs is enough? Well, the first thing that I want to talk about in this video is, what kind of artist are you? And actually, before we get to that, we should say that in answering this question, how many gigs is enough for you as a musician, is what are your goals? Because of social media and the digital landscape and the ability to be a musician that doesn't perform live, it forces us to kind of create goals that are more focused and limited based on those constraints. So let's get to the first thing. What kind of artist do you want to be? Do you want to be a guitar player in a band? Awesome. You're going to play live a lot. Do you want to be a digital producer on your laptop who makes one song a week and puts it up on Spotify, earning digital royalties over time? You don't have to play at all. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to play live at all. Do I recommend some live performance for that artist still? Yeah, I do, because you want to see how so that digital producer guy could get a DJ gig, like, I don't know, once a month, just to see how his new songs are doing in the club. And everything in between. If you're a jazz pianist, like, who gives most of your income is based on giving lessons to college students. Should you be doing some live gigs? Yeah. I mean, you want to put your jazz chops to the audience's ears and see how they sound. But amongst this spectrum of genres, each genre has kind of the modus operandi of how many gigs you should be doing in order to stay somewhat relevant. So for me personally, my music has fallen more in the Americana, folk music scene, and playing live is a big component of it. Like, you need to play live to get your original songs on ears of people who enjoy your genre, to see how they measure up and to see how they can affect people in a real way. I mean, I write songs on an acoustic guitar and sing, and I write my own lyrics. So I need to be able to play those in front of people to get feedback on which ones are good. So genre is important. Let's say you're in a heavy metal band, a prog rock band. In that case, probably half and half. You spend half your life in the studio and half your life on the road playing in. Now, heavy metal might be harder to play live because there are less live venues for that genre. So that would be a limiting factor in the heavy metal world. I don't really know heavy metal, or let's say rap too. Like if you live in small town Iowa, there's probably very little places for you to display your rap talents. So in that case, your genre is kind of limiting you to play live. Now, can you just turn on your phone and perform for your social media crowd? Yeah, you can. Is that a live gig? I'm determining no. Not yet. Maybe someday that will change. But genre is the first thing. The next thing, which I think is probably more important, and it speaks more to goals, is where are you at in your artist career? That's really the biggest thing. Once you commit to making music as a profession and as an art form, and being a performer, whether having some social media component or not, where you're at in your career and how young you are, how old you are, really determines how many gigs you're going to do in this year. So when it comes to goals, like basically every September, by the end of tour season, when you've done the most gigs, I start to sit back and go, okay, what are my goals for next year in terms of how many gigs I want to play? And if you have the infrastructure built, like booking agents and managers and band members and all that, this is in the fall is usually the best time to be making those decisions, because these people don't need to know how to schedule their lives. So everybody who's a part of your team in one way or another is like going to be, they're going to want to know, okay, how much commitment should I be giving to Kev in being in his band or being around him, or what's Kev's plan? It's funny to talk about yourself in third person. Anyway, so yeah, the goals are usually based on a yearly plan. And it depends on what your personal goals as far as music goes. So I want to go back to when I was like 20 years old. And at that point, if you're 20 years old, you got something to prove. And you want to prove it over and over again. Like you want to hit the road. You got low commitments, low rent, low credit card debt. You're probably not married yet. Maybe you have a girlfriend. You don't have kids yet. You don't have a mortgage yet. Maybe you got a car payment or a van payment or something, but you have way less responsibilities in life at 20 years old. Is it easier to say, I'm going to go do 100 dates this year with my buddies in the van? Absolutely. You can do that. You're 20 years old and you got no commitments. And what's even more important than that is you need to find your voice. You need to find your musical sound. You're going to learn so fast at 20 years old, and just like lessons every single weekend. You're going to be building thick skin as a musician, putting yourself in front of live crowds over and over again, getting the rejection of people not liking your songs. You're going to be getting screwed by bar owners who want to pay you less than they agreed to. So many things. You're going to see fights in bars, and so much is about to happen that you need to go out and live that. And it's a part of living the dream, of course, as a working musician. So between 20 and 30, I would say just gig as much as you want to. 200 dates a year, whatever you can physically stand. I would say that how many gigs is enough doesn't even apply to you if you want to be a rock guitar player in a band. And how much you are willing to travel, that also kind of comes into play, because if you live in a small town in Iowa, you're going to have to travel to do 200 gigs a year. If you live in Nashville, no, maybe you won't have to travel at all. Like you can do 200 gigs down on Broadway. Or if you live in New York City, maybe you can play a jazz bar 200 gigs. So where you live definitely is a factor in that case. But how old you are is kind of the biggest factor. So let's say you get to 30, right? And you've done 1,000 gigs, 1,500 gigs in 10 years. You're going to start to feel some of that. A lot of things start to crop up. Mental health, nutrition. Now you're in your 30s. You probably got a beer gut. And you're like, I've been sacrificing a lot and I'm making the same amount of money I did 10 years ago. Maybe you've had some major success and you're making 10 times the amount. Well, now you have 10 times the responsibility. That's the thing about the road and doing live gigs. It really is the great equalizer. You're trading your time for a paycheck. And no matter what that paycheck becomes, the time is still spent. And your mental energy and physical energy. So touring can become very difficult. You are like a trained athlete on the road. You get into your 30s, you have to start eating right, exercising right, hanging out with people who don't drink or do drugs, and it becomes like a clean sport if you're still going to do it in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Like if once you become a full-blown adult and you want to keep touring, you can't do it like you did when you were 20 years old. It's just impossible. So you get to 30 and you've done all these gigs and you're recognizing some of the brutal realities that I just mentioned. And then you go, you know what? I'm taking a couple years off. How many gigs is enough? All of a sudden goes to 0. You decide at that time in your life, I need perspective. Give me a part-time job. I don't care. Like I've been through too much. I've seen too much. It's all wearing on my soul, and I'm kind of forgetting why I love playing music in the first place. Like, why did I get into this whole thing? And then you get that part-time job, and you go out and you just start paying bills, and you start to get peace back in your life again, and maybe you have a girlfriend, or maybe you get married, or maybe you have kids, and maybe this will last a couple years, like 3 or 4 years. And then you get the itch. You want to get back out there. You love playing music, and then you do it. So then you go, let's say you're 34, and you go, I'm going to do 30 gigs next year. No, not even that. I'm going to do 10 gigs next year. So you reach out to your old bandmates, or you find a young band or an older band or some band that needs a guitar player, and you join that band. And you start falling in love with the process all over again. And that's kind of why I'm making this video, is because I've fallen in love and fallen out of love with the touring game 20 times. No, not 20 times. At least 5 or 6 times in my life, where you just burn the candle and put everything you got into it for 4 or 5 years. Then you get burn out a little, take the next couple years a little lighter.